Dear all, good day. Today is my special lecture on squat along with the effects of backing and cushioning, which mainly takes place not only in narrow channel but in many canals. This occurred to me to broadcast this particular lecture to facilitate the mariners, especially the masters and the senior officers, to make them understand the intricacies of the subject matter of squat along with the backing and cushioning effects. As you all know, I've written lots of things on the hydrodynamics and even written a book on hydrodynamics. And still I teach lots of mariners around the world on hydrodynamics, being my passion as far as my ship handling and the hydrodynamics subject is concerned. So we begin with this being the special lecture, so I've not named it. Like so far I've broadcast 55 lectures. Besides that, the interview of a lot of personalities world over. This particular lecture is on squat plus banking and cushioning effects. The hydrodynamical interaction under the hull and near the banks. So I've taken the full compilation of how does the hydrodynamical effects work. That is under the hull when I say with respect to squat and near the bags basically reflects upon the backing and cushioning effects. So we begin with it on the slide number 1. Now hydrodynamics and squat effect. Now let's talk about this particular vessel which is actually at present stationary. I've shown here the WL, that is the water level. G is the longitudinal center of gravity of the vessel looking from the side, and B is the longitudinal center of buoyancy. As you can see, the vessel is loaded on an even keel draft and she is at berth. Because she is not on the dynamic mode, in other words, she is static and not moving, and she is even keel. So I've shown here how the water pressure is exerted upon under the hull is working. So because she is even keel, she is not squatting unless of course the tide is or the flow of current is very strong, then you may have a virtual effect of squat as well. Do not forget it. Like I have explained this in my previous lectures, like when the vessel is at anchor and you're stemming a very strong current, you may expect a virtual squat even when you're not moving. So in figure number 1, when the vessel is starting on an even keel draft and when she is having a block coefficient of more than 0.7, of course she will squat by head or bow. Now the water pressure passing under the hull in static condition, that is the high pressure with low velocity, because it's a high pressure here, there's no constriction and the velocity of the vessel is low. Because the water pressure under the hull is traversing with a high pressure, which is creating a buffer between seabed and the vessel's hull. Now the water pressure which is traversing here, it's at high pressure, which is giving a buffer to the vessel and she is not squatting. This is also other perspective. But when we look at the figure number 2, where the vessel is in the dynamic mode and because the block coefficient is more than 0.7, she is squatting by head. Let's see what's happening. Now at this point in time, because the vessel is in the dynamic mode, the G, that is the longitudinal center of gravity and the center of gravity of the vessel, because the weight which is already loaded on the ship, as long as that has not been changed, the center of gravity will not change. But because of the squat, as I explained in my previous lectures as well, the vessel may also experience change in trim. Why? Because the center of buoyancy, which was here earlier, now it has moved aft, which has given her a tipping edge because of the effect of squat. And this is the fulcrum which is caused. You see the red color line? This is the fulcrum which is caused, and the center of buoyancy is pushing up because of the effect of squat, because she is on dynamic mode and she is tipping by bow. Why? Because the block coefficient is more than 0.7. Now, reiterating the same point, the position of G will remain same as long as no change in onboard weights distribution that is on board. However, there will be a change in the vessel's B, that is the LCB, longitudinal center of buoyancy. There will be change in the LCB or B position due to change in the underwater volume of displacement due to effect of squat. Now, when I say underwater volume of displacement, it is certainly a very important aspect which you must remember, which I will explain you like how we have the displacement of the ship, which is calculated in metric tons, which you see in your load indicator. You divide that by the density of water in which the vessel is floating, be it sea water, fresh water, you get the underwater volume of displacement. Therefore, due to the above effect, the vessel may experience vibrations, that is because of the effect of squat. Due to the above effect, the vessel may experience the vibration, sluggish response to steering, shuddering effect, as well as can cause smelling of the bottom, that is, may touch the bottom in case the speed is not in control or the speed is out of control. If the speed of the vessel is not kept under control, the fulcrum falls on the vessel between LCG and LCB due to the reduction in the water pressure below the hull may, let her, or maybe it may culminate into smelling the ground or touching the bottom on a high speed. So what a caution or prudent mariner should do is to reduce the speed. More the speed, more the squat. It differs. Vessel with a block coefficient of more than 0.7 will squat by head or bow, and the vessel which has got a block coefficient of less than 0.7 will squat by stern. So at this point in time, because the vessel has squatted, the water is still passing under the hull because the vessel is moving forward. But in this case, the pressure has reduced, so the buffer has reduced, but the velocity of water passing under the hull has increased, which is causing a Venturi effect and also in cognizance with the Bernoulli's theorem. So I'm repeating myself. In this case, the pressure is high under the hull, which is causing a buffer. But in this case, the water is still passing through under the hull. But in this case, the pressure has reduced, whereas here the pressure was high. The pressure has reduced, but the velocity of the water has increased. So the buffer is reduced because of squat. This I've explained you in a reciprocative manner from the squat perspective. So here, the WL water level is here, that is, she is dipped compared to this one when she was starting, now she is dynamic, and this is the seabed, and the water pressure has reduced and the velocity of water traversing through under the hull has increased, which is basically the effect or after effect of squat. So, a prudent mariner, and by the way, the effect of squat increases, when, so let's say if your draft to depth ratio is 1/2, which I also explained in my earlier lectures. For example, if your static draft is 10 meters and the depth of the water which you're traversing through is 20 meters, the effect of squat pronounces exponentially. Lesser than the depth of 20 meters for a draft of 10 meters vessel, it increases exponentially. So do not make a mistake when I'm talking about it. Now coming to the other aspect, that is the banking and the cushioning effect in a narrow channel, that is narrow channel, canal and restricted waters. Now let's say this being a canal or restricted waters or a channel. Now when we talk about here, in this figure number 3, because previous were figure number 1 and 2. The vessel is maintaining her in the center of the channel, equidistance from both the banks, that is from here and here. So she is in the center of the channel. This is her coastline. Now, I had also explained why bow waves are positive and stern waves are negative. Bow waves are positive, construed positive, because when the vessel is moving as per the Archimedes principle, she is displacing her own weight of the water what she is traversing through. So the water which is passing through, it's filling up the void of the underwater volume of displacement. So water which is coming at the bow, hitting at the bow, is filling up the void, and at stern it is receding and passing. And because of the speed of the vessel, these forces acting upon the vessel are positive forces, because they are hitting upon or touching your hull at a velocity which is reciprocative or reciprocal to or directly proportional to the speed of the vessel. So that is the reason the bow or the head forces are known as positive, are construed as positive, and the stern forces where the water is receding from the stern, because even also the curvature of stern is also construed as negative. And this we know the pivot point, which is 1/3 of the length from the bow. As far as practicable, maintain the vessel in the channel, in the center of the channel, that is in a narrow channel, fairway, and or the canal. Now, we may have seen so far in the previous slides how does the squat affects the vessel maneuverability. Now let's talk about the banking and the cushioning effects in the combination with the shallow water effect. So what I've done, I have basically, amalgamated both the aspects, that is the squat, along with the banking and cushioning effects. So, the predominant factor in this case is the vessel's underwater volume of displacement, which we must never forget. More the torque, more the dead weight, more the underwater volume of displacement. Because if this vessel, which is displacing whatever X amount of metric tons of water, hypothetically speaking, if I pick her up, hypothetically, I'm saying hypothetically, if I pick her up, this vessel from the channel, hypothetically, and keep it on the table, what will you see? You will see a void of this shape in case the water has stopped flowing, everything is stopped hypothetically. So let me repeat. Hypothetically, if the water has stopped flowing, the river or the canal or the channel has stopped flowing, hypothetically, to make you understand this theory. And at that point in time, the ship is also stopped, and I pick up the ship. What do you see? You will see a void of a ship shape with respect to the draft or the depth, which is nothing but the underwater volume of displacement. Now, when the water is coming from here, that is, if I bring the picture on live, no more hypothesis now, the water is going to come and fill up this void as soon as possible. But because of the restriction of the channel width and the UKC, that is the draft of the vessel, it will take a lot of time to fill up this void, and that will create a vacuum. And how it works with respect to the Bernoulli's theorem and with respect to the Venturi effect, we'll see in the next slides. So, I repeat that the predominant factor in this case is the vessel's underwater volume of displacement. The importance and the significance of that has to be clearly understood first by the attendees. So, the people who are watching me, or when I'm doing lots of mentoring sessions for masters all around the world and many other things, it is for their benefit I broadcast this lecture. That the underwater volume of displacement aspect shall be understood. If you don't understand, for the people who are watching my video worldwide, do let me know. But for the people who come on into my class, I will explain them, in detail in a comprehensive manner. Thank you. Now let's come to the same ship. This ship, let's say for some reason, she is deviated from the center of the channel. And she has landed up here. That is, this was her coastline as per the previous slide here, where she was nice and easy traversing through the center of the channel. But for some reason, she has shifted. Maybe the alteration was wide enough, and the master or the duty officer could not take, the judgment with the rate of turn indicator and how much or at what time should they execute the wheel over position, etc., etc. So for some God-forsaken reason, she has come to this way, to the starboard side of the bank. Now, first, let's see what is happening. The vessel may experience enhanced shallow water effects subject to the depth of the water and a UKC, especially when the UKC is less than 50% of the draft. What I explained earlier. So, let's try to understand the situation. The vessel was initially traversing as per the previous slide in the center of the channel, but maybe because she overshot the alteration or the wheel over position was not marked correctly, and or the master parlor did not exercise the due diligence, and for some reason she's ended up off onto the starboard side of the central line of the channel. Now what is happening here? The water is passing here. Okay, initially when we see here the water was passing, clearly on both the sides. But here, what is happening? Initially the pressure was high, but here the pressure reduces and the velocity of water increases. So, high pressure on the bow and low pressure on the stern increase the velocity of water at the stern, along with the differential pressure between the hull sides, causes the bow to swing more to port and stern more to the back. So, one is when she was passing here, there was a differential pressure, but not so much steep gradient. But when she is drifted away from the coastline, here the pressure which was high, now the pressure as it is passing through this tunnel or the venturi effect which is taking place, because of which the pressure was high initially when she was here, but here the pressure has reduced and the velocity has increased, which has caused a fulcrum. The bow is, going more to the port, and subsequently stern is coming more to the starboard. Why? Because the water pressure here is reduced and the velocity of water passing through is increased. And now let's see the positive negative forces. Of course, the positive forces are more onto the port side because she's going more to the port. So the water which is trying to cover up the underwater volume of displacement is coming more from this side. Whereas here there's a vacuum which is created. Because of this vacuum, the vessel is tilting more to the port and stern subsequently to the starboard. So, high pressure on the bow, low pressure at the stern increased. Velocity of water at stern, along with the differential pressure between the hull, causes the bow to swing to port and stern close to the bank. Number 3 factor results into a very sluggish steering of the vessel due to less water flow through the rudder, because here the water pressure was initially out beyond this point it was high, but the water pressure is reducing, and the velocity is increasing. Therefore, rudder is not getting sufficient water to respond to the steering. So, which results into the very sluggish steering of the vessel due to less water flow through the rudder and stern getting constantly drawn towards the bank. And the fulcrum F, which I explained earlier, caused due to pivot axis, further enhances the bow cushioning effect, because the pivot axis, which is on a head motion, is 1/3 from the bow of the length from the bow. But because of this hydrodynamical effect, the fulcrum is created, which is tilting vessel more to the port from the bow and stern more to the starboard. For large vessels, reduction in UKC can cause and or lead towards grounding. So, when large vessels which are traversing either narrow channels, canals, in particular Suez canals, because right now we are having loads of incidents in Suez Canal, the people or the mariners forget to understand the factuality and the reality of it. And that is the reason why I'm trying to stress upon it. That for large vessels, reduction in the UKC can cause and or lead towards grounding. UKC aspect I explained earlier in the first part of this lecture. Now I'm explaining in combination, in cognizance and in amalgamation to that, the banking cushioning effect. So now you understand. At one point in time, vessel is experiencing squat, and for some reason the vessel has overshot the turn or has drifted away from the center line of the channel or canal, and now the effect is basically happening as double one. And many times, very little you can do if you are not exercising caution and or due diligence. This also goes with respect to the past accidents which have taken place in lots of places, and in particular in place like Suez Canal. Of course, there are lots of factors when we talk about Suez Canal. Not only this, the pilots, we know how they are in Suez Canal, etc. And if the master is not in charge, and if the master has not taken the full and final control, these things do happen. Hence, it is advisable to stick towards the center of the channel with safe speed in order to maintain sufficient UKC, keeping an eye on the echo sound. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is what we have landed up into. Now, the question is how we can persevere to come out of this situation. That recourse also I have given. So please do pay attention onto it. What actions we must need to do. Provided your engines are good, your steering is under control, your speed is under control, but to get out of the banking or cushioning effect, in between giving spurts of extra kicks, we may have to increase the speed as what I have explained in the next slide. So, with respect to the previous slide, now we have landed up in this situation. Now, how we can persevere to get out of this situation, to bring the vessel as close as possible and or towards the center line of the canal or channel. Corrective action by the vessel in case of coming near the bank and how to overcome the banking and cushioning effect. Bank and cushioning effect. Now let me go through this, the figure number 1, which is here. The vessel is already getting drawn towards the bank at this point in time. Give small helm gradually towards the bank, that is to the starboard side, towards the bank. Very small gradual helm. You need to give very small gradual helm. What will happen? Because here the pressure has reduced and the velocity has increased. What we want to try to get the stern away from the bank. Very small controlled helm we need to give to the port. To the starboard, because the vessel is, the stern is coming towards starboard. So we have to give very small controlled helm to the starboard to get the stern away from the bank. Number 2, give short bursts of increase of speed, keeping eye on the echo sounder and the UKC. So, because the pressure here has reduced and velocity of water has increased, so there is no buffer, absolutely no buffer. The buffer which was there has reduced drastically. That is the reason your stern is going more towards the bank. So to overcome, we need to give small, helm towards the bank, try to increase the speed, all the time monitoring UKC and squat. This is very important. And this process takes some time, perseverance, experience and knowledge. So don't expect that this will happen just you take few actions. No. Remember, Rome was not built in a day. Okay. So as the vessel is already getting drawn towards the bank at this point in time gives small help and gradually towards the bank, gives short burst of increase of speed, keeping an eye on the echo sounder and the UTC. Uh, the moment you see that is the moment you see the stern in case the starboard quarter, that is in this case the starboard quarter is opening up from the bank, gradually reduce the helm. So you have given a starboard stern thrust and starboard helm, and you've increased the speed, and you watch your distance from the bank visually as well, and with the radar or whatever you can, but visually the better. As you find that because you've given a starboard helm and the stern is opening up, of course you increase the speed. You also are monitoring UKC and all that. Reduce the speed, reduce the helm. Gradually, you will find you will start shifting as per the figure number 2 towards the center of the channel. Now, figure number 2. Repeat the same steps. In this figure, you repeat the same steps, that is, slight helm to the starboard, increase this vessel's speed in short spurts to get rid of this suction and cushioning and the venturi effect. You will see that you are gradually coming out of this danger, but you have to be patient, you have to be knowledgeable, you must know what is happening. Your situational awareness is very, very important. Remember, situational awareness you must be very you must be very sound about. Now repeat the same steps, that is small helm towards the bank, gradually increase the speed, monitoring the sounding and the UKC. Figure number 3. Now in figure number 3, what I've shown here, the vessel has started clearing the bank suction. Now in this case you are closer to the bank, the water pressure was less, buffer was less, velocity of water had increased, but as you start opening up, start moving towards the center line of the channel, the water pressure starts gradually increasing and starts giving you buffer from the bank. So with respect to figure number 1, 2 and now figure number 3. So you can see the distance from here, from the bank, because of these maneuvers has increased, and subsequently the water pressure has increased and velocity of water has reduced, which has in return been helping to basically facilitate your better steerage, because in this case the steerage was very bad. Velocity of water was high, pressure was less, and rudder was not getting sufficient water to steer or to maneuver or with respect to the hand. But when you came to figure number 2, it became a bit better, and figure number 3, of course, better than figure number 2, the situation. Now figure number 3, the vessel has started clearing the bank suction effect constantly. Constantly monitor UKC with increased spurts of speed. Bring the vessel towards the coastline gradually. Reduce the speed as the vessel gets out of the bank cushioning effect. Once the vessel is on the coastline, maintain the course and original safe speed. So, let me give you a recap. Here, the water pressure was less, velocity of water was more. But once we started giving this maneuver, giving slight starboard helm and trying to overcome the suction or venturi effect by spurts of giving short extra kicks. Remember, slow speed control is always the best control you can ever have. So, in this case, what has happened? The water pressure started increasing once the vessel started, the distance started increasing from the stern. Water pressure here was little more than what it was here, and over here it is quite substantial, which has caused a buffer, and velocity of water in figure number 3 as per figure number 3 has reduced with respect to figure number 2, because in figure number 1 water pressure was low and the velocity of the water was high. In figure number 2 water pressure had increased giving a buffer. Velocity of water had subsequently reduced with respect to figure number 1. Figure number 3, the water pressure has increased subsequently, considerably, and the velocity of water has reduced, which has caused a buffer. And at this point in time, once you find that you're getting away from the banking cushioning effect, give gradual helm and make a course to come gradually towards the center of the channel. Do not give a very hard helm, otherwise you may land up onto this side. Gradually, every 3, 4, 5 degrees, start coming towards the center of the channel. Do not give very big, alteration to come immediately here. That will, land you up into another catastrophic situation. So, ladies and gentlemen, I hope I have managed to explain you the most critical aspect of banking and cushioning effect. Hope this may be of some help to you. I wish you safe sailing. Thank you. Good day. Bye bye. Take care. Asana. Thank you.